I was able to stack up 52,026 points for open arc probes during an electromagnetic storm on Spaceport. For my equipment, I brought in an anvil with a single stack of ammo, a hole cracker with 2 stacks of ammo, 8 stacks of adrenaline shots, a photoelectric cloak, snap hook, and zip lines, as well as 4 wolf packs that I didn't end up using. That said, I would still recommend bringing wolf packs if you got them. Now the trick to this challenge is knowing how to put together an optimal route. At the end of the day, your route is king, and your route will determine how much points you actually end up earning. But there's a little bit of nuance and some tricks to how this challenge works that will help you along the way. So the first thing that I want to do is give you the tools that you need to be successful. And in order to really be successful in setting a high score for this challenge is using an online interactive map to show you where all of the potential arc probes can spawn. I tend to use Metaforge. It's been reasonably accurate for me throughout all of the seasons that I've used it. Now, the key things that you need to pay attention to when you are starting to set your route is where you spawn and where the final extraction is, as well as where are all the groupings of arc probes. Now, when I say groupings of arc probes, what I'm referring to are these little smaller subsets of arc probes. Scattered throughout Spaceport, you will find a cluster of arc probes on the interactive map. But within each cluster, you're only going to find 3 arc probes total. Now, another thing to consider within each match, each section of arc probes may or may not spawn in. As best as I can tell, anywhere from 2 to 3 sets of arc probes will not spawn during a round. So the RNG does play a role here, and that's why learning to run an optimal route that will cover every section is the key thing that you need to do for success. Now, another trick for how you can know whether or not there is an arc probe near you is one of 2 things. Both arc probes and arc couriers will emit a smoke signal so you can see it visually, but sometimes that smoke signal will go away when a player has breached the probe already and looted it. But arc probes will appear on your map if you have it open while you're running. So it can be very beneficial as you're running through an area looking for arc probes to run with your map open, because it will highlight where the probe is, or even if it's a courier instead of a probe. And this minor detail can save you a ton of time throughout the length of the game. So make sure you are looking at your map and using that to your advantage. Now, other things to consider as you are doing this challenge is that you need to be aware of where the final extraction is. And you need to figure out how to run your route in a way that will allow you to end at the final extraction. Additionally, while it's not necessarily important for setting a high score, you want to try and run your route in a way that lets you follow other players who are doing the breaching of the arc probe itself. The first player to interact with an arc probe will have to breach it before it can be searched, and then players who come up after the fact can simply just search the container and then move on to the next. It is an imperfect science, and there is no one size fits all or perfect route to run, but that should at least help you understand the core concepts behind how to design a route and what to think about when you are trying to design it in real time. Now, if you've never done this challenge, you may want to be aware that when you do start to breach an arc probe, the arc probe will begin to emit a noise that will attract enemies in the nearby area, and that noise will persist as long as the breach has not been completed. So the second that you start the breach, the probe will begin to emit that noise, and then once the breach is completed, the noise will stop. If you have to disengage from an active breach because, say, something like lightning is striking on you, the noise will continue to emit and it will continue to attract nearby enemies. So it is in your benefit to try and finish the breach before you engage enemies that are being attracted by the probe noise. In most cases, you can finish a breach before an enemy aggroes you, but it's not 100%. So just listen to the audio cues for the enemy that's coming to you. But when possible, I do recommend trying to finish the breach or before backing away and using your photoelectric cloak to disengage. Now, while being the player that has to breach all of the arc probes is a tougher hill to climb, it doesn't necessarily mean you can't stack up as high of a score. I did this 2 different times. The first time I was lucky and I didn't have to open as many probes, and the second time I had to breach nearly every single probe that I searched. The difference in score ended up being only a couple of thousand. My first run was the 52k, and then my second run was 50k. And I could have gotten that a little bit higher and maybe even passed my first run if I didn't catch some significant aggro right at the end of the game. So the ultimate thing that you really need to focus on is running a good route and covering all of the Arc Probe spawns as you are running that route. Now beyond that, there isn't a ton more to this challenge. It really is just a process of running around and looking for the probes, breaching and searching them when you find them, and stacking up your score. Once you've searched enough probes and you're happy with your score, head back to Speranza, collect any loot if you haven't already, and watch your score fly up the leaderboard. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching.